Ladies and gentlemen, life is heavy. We all carry something. Battles fought in silence, struggles no one sees, wounds that don't bleed but still hurt. And sometimes the only thing that makes that weight bearable is knowing somebody cares. But what happens when that care disappears, when the warmth fades, when the voice that once lifted you up goes silent? He feels it. Oh, he feels it. You see, when you stop caring, you don't just step away, you shift the weight. The load doesn't vanish, it just lands squarely on his shoulders. And that weight, that's regret, that's loneliness, that's self-doubt creeping in at 2 a.m. when no one's there to answer his call. Some think caring is weakness, but the truth, the real truth, caring is power. It holds a man together. It gives him something to lean on when his knees buckle from the weight of his own mistakes. You ever seen a man walk through life thinking he's invincible until the one who cared the most walks away? That's when he learns. That's when he faces himself in the mirror. And the reflection looking back, it ain't pretty. Because when no one's there to catch him, he falls hard. And when he falls into his own thoughts, his own regrets, his own past. That's the weight. That's the burden. And make no mistake, he will feel it. Because at the end of the day, love, care, attention, these aren't just words. They're the hands that pull you back from the edge. They're the light in the darkness. And when you take them away, what's left? A man alone with the weight of his own feelings. And trust me, there is no weight heavier than that. People mistake kindness for weakness. They think that caring about someone, truly caring, means you're soft, vulnerable, or easily broken, but that couldn't be further from the truth. See, real strength isn't in how hard you can hit, how tough you can talk, or how well you can pretend not to feel. Real strength is in showing up, in carrying what's heavy, and in standing beside someone, even when it would be easier to walk away. Caring is not a weakness, it's power, it's resilience, it's a choice. And the thing about choices is, when you stop making them, when you choose not to care, the weight doesn't just disappear. It shifts. It moves from your hands to his. And believe me, he will feel it. Imagine a man walking through life with confidence, believing he's got it all figured out, believing he doesn't need anyone. Then one day, something changes. The person who was always there, the one who checked in, the one who asked if he was okay even when he brushed it off, the one who saw him not for what he pretended to be, but for who he was, stops caring, stops calling, stops showing up. At first, he might not notice. He might convince himself it doesn't matter, that he's fine, that life moves on. But then the silence settles in. The absence makes itself known. And that's when the weight starts pressing down. See, we all think we're strong until we lose the thing that kept us steady. We all believe we're unshakable until the foundation we took for granted starts to crack beneath us. Caring isn't just about words or gestures, it's about presence. It's about holding space for someone even when they don't realize they need it. And when that presence disappears, it doesn't just fade, it leaves a hole, a space that nothing else quite fills. A man who has always had support, even if he never acknowledged it, will feel the shift when it's gone. It might not hit him right away. It might take days, weeks, even months, but eventually there will be a moment when he reaches for something, maybe just a conversation, maybe just a small piece of warmth, and it won't be there. And in that moment, the weight of every unsaid thing, every ignored moment, every taken for granted kindness will hit him like a storm. Some people will tell you to stop caring as a form of revenge, as a way to prove a point. But caring was never about control. It was never about power over someone else. Caring was always about giving, about choosing love, about offering something real. And when you take that away, it's not about punishment, it's about absence. And absence has a way of teaching lessons that words never could. The truth is, no one is as strong as they think they are. We all carry something, whether we admit it or not. And when the person who used to help carry the load is gone, when the emotional safety net disappears, when the quiet support that was always there suddenly isn't, and only then does he truly understand what he lost. It's easy to believe you don't need anyone when you've never been without them. It's easy to take love for granted when it's always been given freely. But when that love is gone, when the effort stops, when the presence fades, he will learn. And that lesson won't come gently. It won't come as a whisper. It will come as a weight, pressing down on him when he least expects it. Because caring isn't weakness, it's strength. It's the kind of strength that people don't recognize until it's no longer there to hold them up. And when it's gone, when that support is missing, when the person who always cared decides they can't anymore, he will feel every ounce of that weight. And no matter how strong he thought he was, no matter how much he believed he could stand alone, that weight will remind him of the one truth people always learn too late. Caring was never the weakness, it was always the power. Silence has a weight to it. People think that absence is just a void, an empty space where something used to be. But it's not. Absence carries weight. Heavy, undeniable, and impossible to ignore. It creeps in slowly, at first just a whisper, a missing piece of conversation, an unanswered call. But then it starts growing. It fills the room, the mind, the heart, and eventually it becomes deafening. When you stop caring, when you stop showing up, when you stop being there, it doesn't go unnoticed. It's felt. It's heard in the quiet moments, when he reaches for something familiar, your voice, your presence, your concern, and finds nothing. That absence? It's not just a missing sound. It's a weight pressing on his chest, making each breath a little heavier. The world doesn't feel the same when someone is missing. At first, he may not acknowledge it. He may convince himself that your silence doesn't matter, that your absence is just a small change in routine. But human nature doesn't work like that. We notice when something we relied on, something that became a part of our world, suddenly isn't there anymore. It's like pulling a chair out from under someone who thought they had something to sit on. It takes a second for them to register what's happened, but when they do, they fall. Silence is loud. It carries every unspoken word, every missed opportunity, every moment where something could have been said but wasn't. And absence is even heavier. Because it's not just the loss of a person, it's the loss of comfort, of familiarity, of connection. It's the realization that what was once so easily accessible is now out of reach. Imagine a room that once held warmth, conversation, and laughter. Now it's empty. The air feels different. The energy shifts. There's a hollowness that wasn't there before. That's what absence does. It doesn't just remove, it replaces. It replaces comfort with uncertainty, warmth with coldness, presence with a void that can't be filled by just anything or anyone. People don't always recognize the power of presence until it's taken away. We go through life assuming that the people who care about us will always be there, that love, kindness, and attention are things we're entitled to. But they're not. They're choices. They're given day after day in small, consistent ways. And when that giving stops, when that effort is withdrawn, when someone who once cared finally lets go, that's when reality sets in. He may try to ignore it, he may fill the silence with noise, music, distractions, other people. But silence isn't something you can outrun. It follows you. It waits. And in the moments between distractions, in the pauses between conversations, in the quiet of the night when the world has settled, there it is, the absence. The weight of what's missing. And here's the thing, that weight isn't just about missing another person, it's about facing yourself. When someone who once cared stops caring, it forces reflection. It makes a person ask the hard questions. What did I do? Why did they leave? Was I the problem? And those questions, they don't go away easily. They linger, they echo, they press down on a person until they have no choice but to face them. Because when you stop caring, you don't just remove yourself from someone's life. You remove the mirror that once showed them who they were. People see themselves through the eyes of those who care about them. They define themselves, in part, by the way they're treated, by the way they're loved. When that love disappears, when that concern fades, they're left alone with their own reflection. And sometimes, that reflection is hard to look at. That's why silence is loud and absence is heavy. In the first half year, the heavy-set woman, Zilla, starts having conversations with her Exian adjutant because it forces a person to sit with the weight of their own choices, their own actions, their own emotions. And no matter how much they try to ignore it, no matter how strong they think they are, they will feel it. Caring was never just about words. It was about being there. It was about presence, consistency, effort. And when that stops, when that disappears, the person left behind isn't just dealing with the loss of another, they're dealing with the weight of everything they never realized they had. A man without support is a man at war with himself. He may not realize it at first. He may walk through life believing he's got everything under control, believing he's unshakable. But even the strongest man has moments of weakness, moments of doubt, moments when he needs something or someone to steady him. And when that support disappears, when the one person who was always there to remind him of his worth, his strength, his potential, suddenly stops showing up, he's left alone with nothing but his own thoughts. And that is a dangerous place to be, because the mind can be a battlefield. It can lift you up or tear you down. And when a man has no one in his corner, when he has no one reminding him of who he truly is, he starts listening to the voices that were once just whispers in the back of his mind, the ones that tell him he's not enough, that he's failing, that he's alone. See, support isn't just about words of encouragement. It's about presence. It's about knowing that even on your worst days, someone is there to pull you back from the edge. It's about knowing that when the weight of the world feels too heavy, there's a voice, a hand, a presence that says, I see you, I believe in you, you are not alone. But when that voice goes silent, when that presence fades, a man is left to battle his own demons. And those demons, they don't fight fair. They know his weaknesses. They know his fears. They know exactly when to strike. And without support, without that steady hand to guide him back to the truth, he starts to believe the lies. He starts to believe that he doesn't matter, that no one cares, that his struggles are his alone to bear. He starts isolating himself, not because he wants to, but because he doesn't know how to reach out anymore. He convinces himself that he's supposed to handle everything on his own, that asking for help is weakness, that emotions are a burden. And little by little, he builds walls so high that even if someone wanted to reach him, they wouldn't know how. And then one day, he looks around and realizes he's alone, not because people abandoned him, but because he never let them in, because he pushed away the very thing he needed most. Connection, support, care, and the weight of that realization, it's heavier than anything he's ever lifted. Because no man is built to stand alone, no matter how tough, no matter how independent, no matter how strong. Every man needs someone to remind him that he's more than his failures, someone to remind him that his worth isn't measured by his worst days, someone to remind him that being human means needing others. But when that someone gives up, when they stop caring, when they walk away because they've given all they can and have nothing left to give, that's when reality sets in. That's when he faces himself with no buffer, no soft place to land, no reassurance that he's more than his mistakes. A man without support is a man lost in his own mind, and the mind can be cruel when left unchecked. It can take a strong man and make him weak. It can take a confident man and make him doubt everything he once believed. It can turn the toughest warrior into his own worst enemy. And the worst part? The battle isn't one that anyone else can fight for him. He has to fight it himself. He has to look in the mirror and see the weight he's been carrying, the wounds he's been ignoring, the loneliness he's been denying. And that moment, that's when he understands. That's when he realizes what support truly meant. Not just comfort, not just love, but survival. Because no man wins a war alone. And when the only enemy left is himself, the battle becomes the hardest one he's ever fought. Love is a mirror. It reflects back to us who we are, how we are seen, and what we mean to the people around us. When someone cares about you, truly cares, they don't just offer love, they offer perspective. They see the parts of you that you overlook, the strengths you underestimate, the goodness you sometimes forget exists within you. They remind you, in their words, their actions, and their presence, that you are valuable, that you matter. But when that love disappears, when that care fades, the mirror shatters. And suddenly a man is left standing alone, staring into a reflection he can no longer recognize. At first, he might not notice. He might convince himself that nothing has changed, that he is the same man he always was. But something feels different. The world feels a little colder. The confidence he once carried so easily starts to waver. Because love, whether we realize it or not, gives us a foundation. It stabilizes us. It reassures us that we are worth being seen, worth being known. But when that love is gone, when the person who once saw him in a way no one else did finally walks away, he is forced to face himself, and that is where the weight settles in. Because it's not just about losing another person, it's about losing the way they made him feel, the way they made him see himself. He no longer has that voice telling him, "I believe in you. You are more than your past. You are capable. You are loved." And when those words stop coming, doubt takes their place. He starts wondering, was I enough? Did I take them for granted? Did I lose something I'll never find again? And those questions don't just sit on the surface. They dig deep. They whisper to him in the quiet moments, in the spaces between distractions, in the stillness of the night when there is no one left to reassure him. That's the thing about love. It shapes how we see ourselves. It allows us to believe in things we might not have seen otherwise. And when it's gone, when that mirror cracks, we are left staring at a version of ourselves that suddenly feels incomplete. A man without love, without care, without that reflection has two choices. He can either face what he sees and do the work to become whole on his own, or he can turn away, bury himself in distractions, and pretend the weight isn't there. But no matter what he chooses, the weight doesn't disappear. The absence doesn't go unnoticed. Because love, once known, cannot be forgotten. It leaves an imprint, a mark that lingers long after the person is gone. And that is where the real battle begins, not with someone else, but within himself. Because now he must figure out who he is without that mirror. He must decide if he is willing to face himself without the reassurance, without the reflection of love guiding him forward. That's why when love is gone, when care is withdrawn, a man doesn't just lose a person, he loses a piece of himself. And there is no weight heavier than realizing you may never again be seen in the way you once were.